Yo, what's up, guys? We are here at Consensus in Toronto 2025. What a beautiful city. What a great time. I'm with my guy, Zack at Genzio Media.
How's it going, brother?
Brother, it is going well. It is good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Now, we did Futurist before this.
Yes.
And so now we're here. This is obviously a much larger scale. What do you think about Consensus this year? First time in Toronto.
I think it's very interesting that they moved it to Toronto. The founders are from Toronto. I actually spoke with him yesterday, really smart guy. And honestly, I think that it is interesting to see kind of the evolution of the event. It seems to get bigger every year, no matter where they move it. Kind of going off the Futurist conference, you did a great job moderating yesterday. I saw those.
Appreciate that.
Killed it, brought the energy. And I don't know, I think it just, maybe we're taking a turning point where crypto is becoming more friendly in both Canada and the US. The narrative for my opinion.
Well, so, okay, that's a really good question. Let me ask you this then.
Go for it.
So the narrative changing and kind of, people a little bit more I don't know, received well, right? It's not so, that's for drug dealers and pirates anymore. So, okay, so if you go through the time, I got into crypto in 2017, and if you look at like the Bitcoin conference over the years, and we'll use Bitcoin conference, but this is very like suit here. This is very suit heavy. But so what we saw was crypto it started out as a movement, right? It's the cypherpunks, peer-to-peer, all that stuff. And then as time went on, we lost the battle as retail. We lost the battle to institutional money. And like it was very clear that crypto, Bitcoin, whatever, became an industry. And this was probably about 2019, 2020. It's like really when the shift happened. But now we're seeing that we're shifting into the global financial ecosystem. Like we are now part of it. So like broader acceptance from everywhere. I was at the Ondo Summit in New York in February, and Samara Cohen, she's like the VP of ETFs, or she plays a high C-suite level role about ETFs at BlackRock. And her whole thing was, in 2018, she was able to do a Bitcoin transaction in 2.5 minutes on her phone. But now she's much faster at it. And this is a VP, a C-suite level person at BlackRock talking about a personal Bitcoin buying experience. And she just did an interview with Blockworks, I believe, when she was on a podcast, and she said BlackRock is early in their digital asset journey. That's wild to me that they're saying that. That means maybe they're not as early, it's like they gotta lead people on. So, okay, so now bring it back to this, like the evolution of crypto the landscape has changed dramatically. When you talk about mass adoption. Yeah. So these events bring in a whole new crowd now.
No, and I agree. And I think it's the events and also just the way that the governments have honestly changed their view on crypto. I mean, we had basically, I would say a very anti-crypto government over the last 4 years in the United States. A lot of people were getting SEC violations. They were using enforcement as regulation, which was a terrible idea.
Right. Good old Gary Gensler.
Yeah, everyone hated Gary Gensler, right? So great, so glad he's gone.
Right.
But I think, we saw that shift with Trump, which is actually helping create more regulation in the US, regardless of what your politics are. If you like crypto, you have to look at just the crypto aspect of it, and it's been a lot more beneficial. We have a Bitcoin reserve now in the US. Right. We're holding different cryptos as the government. And I think Canada also is taking a similar approach where they were sort of anti-crypto in the past, but now as it's becoming more adopted, more regulated, more institutional, as you put it, the rules are changing. Right. And they want to bring it back because there's this kind of notion that like in North America, US, Canada, crypto was all moving to Asia, and it was not going to be here anymore.
Well, it kind of felt like it was going that direction.
It did, and now I'm going to say that's not the case.
Pump the brakes,
baby. It's all coming back to America.
The Trump pump.
It's all coming back to Canada, and I think that's really good because a lot of these companies and founders are American. Like Ripple is the third largest crypto there is. We have Stellar here. We have a lot of different Avalanche. We have a lot of different American companies and founders, and they didn't want to leave. They were forced to leave because they were scared of the government coming after them. So I think we're going to see more adoption from both Americans, Canadians, in the next couple of years, which is just going to help the market mature. Although I do miss the old days too, like, when it was a lot more like, as we talked before, like flip-flops and just more, you could meet everybody, know everybody in the industry. Now it's not that way at all anymore.
It's not that, as someone who, like a KOL or influencer or whatever, like coming to these conferences, it does feel like it tames down year after year of like, the amount of people that you recognize or that recognize you, because it's, you know, it's a much broader audience. And it's actually been really cool to get out and talk to people and figure out where they are in their crypto journey. And,
Right.
you know, are you new into this, or because of, like, we've seen this explosion with governments or nation states taking an interest in crypto and Bitcoin, like, are you now just getting curious? And, you know, you find a lot of people will say, like, oh, I knew about crypto before, or the people who got torched, you know, they bought a top and then sold and they walked away for a few years, and then now they're back thinking, like, okay, this is probably what we're waiting for. Because if you think about, like, what's happening in the banks of the United States, right, where the FDIC has now said, hey, we're good. You guys want to offer crypto to your clients? Awesome. JP Morgan, it was actually announced this morning, JP Morgan did a first transaction where they took, it was for RWA tokenization stuff, they took a transaction on their private blockchain and slid it over to the public blockchain using Chainlink and Ondo.
Very
So, like,
cool.
I mean, this, like interoperability from, like, private blockchains to public blockchains is, like, massive.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I'd love to get, because you know you're doing a lot of interviews. Like, what percent or amount of people would you say are more first timers versus seasoned that you've seen at these events?
Oh man,
because I've seen this. Go ahead, yeah.
I was gonna say it's a really good mix.
It is.
I think it's just like,
it is.
you know, and so you do get a good blend of people who are, this is my first experience. You know, I mean, a couple of people that we're here with, this is their first big conference, right?
Wow.
And so, like, this is a great experience for somebody, for your first experience. And, like, you know, you got to go to a couple of the smaller ones. Like, you know, we did Futurist. It was, like, scale-wise, it was much smaller than what Consensus is. But I think those are some of the even better opportunities for you, too, to go. Because, like, some people will say, like, oh, there was only, like, 1,000 people who there. But, like, that gives you a much better chance to, like, get intimate and have these conversations, because one of the cool things about Web3 is you get this unparalleled access to people, right? Think about, like,
agree.
you know, like the founders, the CEOs, whatever, the devs, you know, you get a chance to connect with them. Like, you get to handshake, meet with them, do the interviews, all that stuff at a place like this. Where do you go? And, like, you're going to find the CEO of Coke, Amazon, like American Express, or, you know, United Airlines or whatever. You don't get to just hang out and chat with those guys.
I agree. The barrier to entry is much lower in crypto, and I think it has gotten a little more tough as things have changed, like just tougher to connect with people because the industry has grown.
Right.
But I mean, for us, people who have been here for a while, we still have those kind of embedded connections. But I mean, it's much easier, 100%, than to meet something like, it'd probably be easier to meet Vitalik than the CEO of Coke.
Yeah.
For an average person, even though Vitalik is much more significant in a lot of ways.
Well,
So
and like, you know, to anybody that, like, because I get a lot of these questions, and maybe you do too, and you can answer this.
Yeah.
Is like, you know, how do you get started? Like, oh, this is so cool. Like, you know, you get a chance to interview this guy or this person. You're doing this. You're running press at this event, and it's like, that's it. Like, and anybody can sign up for it.
Yeah, and I think it is a wide open space, especially in the media space. I mean, we've been able to grow very, very quickly. We've only started doing media about 1.5 years. Before that, we were pretty much services oriented. But I think because there's such a thirst for knowledge in this space, knowledge and alpha, what's actually happening right now, besides the noise, like what is actually being built and how is that impacting the users of all these communities? Because I think, you know, all of these chains have a ton of users. They have real community members. A lot of them are here. And beyond the hype, there's actual real building happening where the technology is generally improving, and it is, like Ethereum is way better now than it was 2-3 years ago when you're paying thousands of dollars for an NFT and gas fees.
Right.
That's all over now. And I think people, you know, almost forget the pain that was caused by those kind of problems as we move on. But generally, the technology has actually improved by leaps and bounds. And I think that is also where we're seeing adoption, besides just the regulation. I think we're also seeing like a merging of industries, and love to get your perspective on this, between AI, crypto, and, like you said, global finance, where as sort of new technology comes out outside the crypto space, people are figuring out how to integrate blockchain into it, whether it's for verifiability, trust, transparency, and that's really bringing in new use cases that didn't exist and actually enhance other current developments, like AI, for example, or LLMs. Having blockchain or crypto components, for example, to verify outputs and inputs and how the decision making is made so that you can see if there's biases in the questions you're asking, is very, very new. And like, that can only be done with blockchain. So I think it's cool to kind of see these different industries merge, where like we're getting AI companies now we have finance, we have investing, we have all these different kind of
Yeah.
industries merging around blockchain, which just makes me more bullish on the
If
space.
you're not bullish on crypto right now, as someone, I mean, we've been in obviously for a couple years and probably a little bit longer than most, and there's people who've been in longer than I have. But like, if you are not bullish on crypto right now, like, what are you doing? Because like we are watching the fourth industrial revolution take place right now.
That's a cool
It's
term.
it's
I
the
like that.
this is the largest. It will be the largest transfer of wealth in the history of humankind, and we are literally watching that happen. The government, like I said, governments, nation states, they're fighting for this technology, and if you're already here, wag me, baby. Like we're all gonna make it. Like we're all gonna. It's been a long time since I even said that. I don't know where that came from,
I love it. Do you think we're,
but I think, but one thing that
yeah,
you
tell
said,
me, tell me.
one thing that you said to me, and I think that is the most important. It's probably the title of this video and everything. Beyond the hype, there's some real heavy duty stuff. Crypto is going to change industries, is going to merge industries. It is the ultimate disruptor. Blockchain technology in detail, like that is the ultimate disruptor. When you think about any kind of disruption in any kind of technology, Uber, how they changed the taxi game, Airbnb changed the hotel game. Crypto is changing finance for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And like I was on this really interesting panel yesterday, and on stable coins, and I think like that is another area where it's really changing the world. Is like we're seeing more and more stable coin adoption, and that's allowing, like for example, Canadians to hedge the market because the Canadian dollar is getting wrecked right now.
Right.
But if you can hold your money in USD,
$1
wherever
is
you
$1.
live, you're so much more protected. And like the gentleman I was with on the panel yesterday, he had family in Africa, and he said all of the farmers are using stable coins.
Wow.
All of them in Africa. Like they don't even think about it because it's like, why wouldn't they? They can actually keep their money then, and they don't have to worry about, maybe tomorrow this dollar I have is going to be worth 60% or whatever because the government's being irresponsible.
Someone else has made some decision
Yeah.
elsewhere that's going to affect my finances. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like not their fault that the government may be unstable where they live. They're just doing their job. But if they're able to essentially have like American money but be doing work in other places, it allows for a lot more stability and growth in these countries. It also helps the dollar as continued global reserve currency and dominant currency, which as an American I love.
But we need it. So
yeah.
I mean, because like our time is up, right? Or I think it's probably we're unexpired. We're borrowed time because if you look at the history of global reserve currencies, I think it was like the 1400s where it started out. It was like I think in Spain, if I'm not mistaken, was the first. And I think the average shelf life of 92 years, and I think we're like at 134 or something like that. So like we are well past like our shelf life of being the global reserve currency. But I love the idea of shifting in here, sliding in with some stable coins, and that's a very good, easy way to keep and retain that power as far as like the dollar goes.
Completely agree. Would you say that we're in a bear or bull market right now?
So technically we're coming out of a bear market because now this is a really good question. So
it's been weird.
In the stock market, if you're 20% below your all-time high, you're technically in a bear market, right? Now we know the difference between stocks and crypto is very, 20% in the stock market is like probably 80% crypto, you know what I mean? So we probably have to find a different metric to say there. But I feel like because if you look at the chart, December, we started sliding in early December and we didn't stop until what, like a week ago? Where we finally maybe broke out of that structure. So I think that it's like, yeah.
Do you think we're going to see a new all-time high?
Oh, yeah, dude. Okay, 108 is the all-time high for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yes.
Like almost 109, or was it?
It's like right around there.
So I'm a believer of this cycle. If we don't extend well past the end of the year, Q3 is really when we're going to get kicked off. I'd like to see 2 something for Bitcoin.
Yeah,
honestly.
250.
Like 220 to 330 are like my numbers. That's like my like bullish case. Like 330 is like let's go, and that's like everything going right, and which we're starting to see like countries like trying to get as much Bitcoin as they can. I was interesting how Germany sold all theirs like right before this thing went parabolic, but whatever. Dumbasses.
More for us, but no, and I think it's really interesting because like. I used to work at OKX, and I was there from 2019 to 2020. And at the time, the president now, the CEO of OKX, Hong, she wrote a piece called "The Case for $1,000 Bitcoin," and everyone dragged her. I mean, it was like they couldn't imagine. The crypto people were all behind her.
Yeah.
the mainstream press was like, they almost were using it as like a hit piece. Like, can you believe that she thinks Bitcoin is going to hit $100,000 in the next 5 years? She was right. It did hit $100,000. And so it's like for us to sit here and say, could it double? Could it triple? Yes, and it probably will.
It probably
It's
will.
probably more likely to do that than to go down at this point over time.
Right.
So I just think it's very fascinating.
I know, like some of the projections that are coming out from Kathy Wood, I believe it's the most recently said, $1.5 million by, was it 2028 or something like that? I can't remember what year it was, and so I hate to butcher it, but she came out and said that that's what they're targeting as far as their numbers and projections on $1.5 million Bitcoin. Like, give it to me. I'll take that. Because the rising tide floats all boats. I mean, that means, XRP Army, they're going to get their share, whatever coin you're in. The ETH gang. What is the ETH, what is their team name?
I don't know, bro.
I don't either.
They need better marketing, maybe.
Probably.
But they're pumping right now, so I can't hate. I have my bags of ETH. I'm very happy.
Do you think the whole thing, like with Eric Trump saying a few months ago, like, this is a great time to buy ETH, you'll thank me later, like they knew kind of something that's going to be going on and what to expect? And I think maybe because tokenization is going to play a huge role on Ethereum, depending on how all things work or whatever. So ETH is going to be a great investment. We all know that. But do you think this is one of those moments where he'll be able to say, look, guys, I told you this was the time to buy Ethereum?
I do, and I think that time is still now. I don't think, like, people ask, am I too late? Did I miss the boat on crypto? Bitcoin's at 100,000, ETH is pumping, and the answer is like, no, not at all. Like, it's still early, and for ETH, we're still significantly down from all-time highs, maybe 30-40%. But I think that will recover, and then once it does, you're going to get into a mania mode where it's just going to go and go. And not just price, but I mean adoption. ETH is having some notable upgrades soon. It's going to be faster, more secure, and a lot of chains, like I just talked to Tezos, they're all building in EVM compatibility, so they're going to be able to connect with ETH and have that kind of cross liquidity and development that's going to both help ETH and companies like Tezos, which I think is like pretty fascinating because you're bridging many different aspects to ETH. The only one that like has kind of resisted that is Solana, but I think that that's also for a good reason because they want to keep everything within their own ecosystem, which is kind of an interesting play too. So I think
like Solana?
I do.
Yeah.
So as sort of these different ecosystems grow, I think it's interesting how they'll kind of compare and contrast, and they may compete, but eventually I think there is going to be some kind of cross compatibility.
I think the interoperability of all of that is what we need. There was somebody, he might not have been in your panel, but it was in the afternoon, and he was talking about blockchains and interoperability. And this is something that I've been saying for a while too, and I love this idea where, we've got these blockchains and they're all gonna like basically perform a specific function, right? Like say like medical records are gonna go on the most secure blockchain. We've got whatever vertical it is, you got gaming is gonna, whether that's an AVAX thing or however that shakes out, right? So all of these applications play a specific role on a specific blockchain, and that's what it's intended for. Instead of like trying to do like, and no shame to the Bitcoin maxis, and I get it, but like they try to be everything to everybody, right? And so they got pissed off that they didn't have NFTs, so that they created ordinals, but then some people got pissed off of the ordinals or whatever. And now they're talking, I know some guys, they're building games on Bitcoin. It's like, no, I would never waste my Satoshis on anything like that. I mean, yeah, maybe if you could earn or whatever, but I think, any time that you have to burn Satoshis, I think to me is a silly move. Like, just let Bitcoin be the store of value that it was intended to be. Let's just leave it at that. You don't have to be NFTs. You don't have to be RWAs. You don't have to be gaming. You don't have to do all that stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that Bitcoin is a tremendous store of value, and its biggest use case will be staking, securing the network, and getting rewards back. I mean, I think there is going to be development on Bitcoin, but honestly, I think the majority of it's going to be used as like a reserve, as a way to hold value and wealth. And I think ETH is still kind of where most of the development is happening. Solana is getting momentum as well. But like, you have to look at the data, and I'm very much multi-chain. I'm not a maxi, and I think honestly the maximalism is somewhat toxic for the industry, because like if you're pro crypto, you should be pro crypto, not pro Bitcoin. Like, just if Bitcoin was the only crypto, we wouldn't be at this conference today.
Right. But I think and most
know
of the
what I
time,
mean?
those people that you find that are the hardcore maxis, where the only thing that exists and matters is Bitcoin. It's because, and to their credit, they were early and they got it and they made a shitload of money. And so like that's all
No,
that.
I'm no hater on that.
I'm not hating on that either. If I
Yeah.
made like $40 million back in like 2017 or 16, 15, whatever it was, like I'd be a Bitcoin maximalist too. And people would hate me because like I'd be like, actually that's not true. I would fuck around with meme coins. Like I would be a
Come
DJ.
on,
I would be a
yeah.
DJ.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Any meme coins you're buying right now?
But I've actually, so I feel like we may see another meme coin season, but when the first one started to dry up, I started allocating back into major chains. So a lot of the Sol coins I was in just went back into Sol, just to make sure that like I preserved some of that capital. When you could start to see that memes were dying out, and I mean, the whole industry was kind of like bleeding out for the last several months, but I feel like we're coming back with another meme cycle.
Well, I think whenever people get greedy, there's definitely no, I don't mean like that, but there's that fear and greed index
Right.
that they show. And right now we're moving towards. We were in extreme fear. Now we're moving towards greed. And I
Right.
think when people in any bull market, when things get hyped, that creates excess liquidity almost, where there's you know more money than actual maybe sometimes use cases, and that almost leads to people to wanting to speculate more, which I think is fine. Like, let people do what they want. It's their money, and there's probably memes that are going to pop off. So I love that. And I think that memes honestly are a great way to bring in like normal people
Absolutely.
outside crypto, because like Dogecoin is, most people don't know this, but Dogecoin is the #1 asset that women buy more women buy Dogecoin than I worked at an exchange, so we could look
Really?
at the data. Yes, so it's really interesting because it's like, it doesn't seem as, and I think women can totally be technical, but if you're not technical and you're not in crypto and you're just buying
You want the
a
exposure.
coin, yeah, you just want the exposure, and it seems fun and easy. And because the price is small, people in their heads think, even though the market cap is large, they think, there's more room to grow here. There's a whole culture around Dogecoin to $1. And it's not, everyone in that community is very friendly, outgoing, and sort of like non-technical in a way, which I think opens it up to a more general populace. So like when I worked at an exchange and we listed Dogecoin when I was there. That was one of our largest influxes of trading revenue ever,
Wild.
volume. Dogecoin was, after it was listed, it was like the top. It was like traded more than Bitcoin for like 3 or 4 days, just because the amount of users who came in who wanted to trade and buy Dogecoin. That was obviously during the run up and when Elon was talking about it a lot and
So
stuff.
it's a little special experiment.
It was a different time, but at the same time, it was interesting because that brought in a lot of people, and I actually met like a lot of people on Spaces that I'm still friends with now through that original Dogecoin movement. So I think it's kind of cool that like there's a lot of other memes now, but like that was the first one and still is the largest, and it still is driving new adoption. Like if you ask like a random person, like, do you know what Dogecoin is, who knows nothing about crypto,
They do. They have heard of it.
they've heard of it, and if they haven't, they're probably gonna laugh and be like, what the hell is a Dogecoin? Versus if you start with Bitcoin, I feel like people are like, oh god, like what is this gonna be? And there's more like connotations around it, I feel like. So it's interesting.
It's interesting. I wonder, like, this. If you think about the psychology of it too, because Bitcoin has a negative connotation, but because Doge is that meme, it's almost like the softer approach, and you would get a much better response out of somebody because one, you're going to resonate better because first off, I think people are going to assume at this point now, Bitcoin's you got to be rich. You're either a criminal or you're rich if you do Bitcoin. And I know that's a generalization and it'll change or whatever, but
yeah, no, it's still a negative association. And I think just the technical aspects, when people say Bitcoin, they think like, oh god, I'm gonna have to read a book or learn all this stuff, and also the price is so high, which even though most people don't know that you can buy $10 worth of Bitcoin, they think you have to buy the whole Bitcoin.
It's wild to me that like people don't understand that. It was one of I'm not a big TikToker. It's been a while. I actually need to get a TikTok account started just because whatever, but the first TikTok that I had ever posted on my channel was if you ever gone to Costco and they cut the pizza in the cage.
Oh yeah.
So I was just like, I just said basically, you don't have to buy a full Bitcoin. You can buy a piece of one. That thing went like 3 to 5 million views or whatever. Like it went like absolute crazy. But like it's just funny how you don't think, because even people who are they should know. They're like, oh, you can buy just a little bit of it. Like, what do you mean? Yeah.
And people also, I think, don't like, they look at the price of an asset versus the associated market cap, which is also why I think memes can get more traction. Because like, if you're buying something for like 0.0001 cent, psychologically, you're
I
like,
can get a million of these.
yeah, like you can get way more for your buck. And I think that's also where meme coins kind of come in, because it makes people feel like they can get a greater share of something earlier on, which gives them a higher chance to kind of go up.
Speculation.
Now, yeah, whether that will happen or not depends on the community, the hype, all these different things. But I think we're, you know, in a fascinating place.
So we'll end it after this.
Cool.
Meme coins. They, to me, they are one of those things that are going to still be in crypto for a long time. It's like, you think about society, right? Like, not everywhere is like Las Vegas. You know what I mean?
I wish it was.
I mean, oh, me too. You know, but like that would be the meme coin casino if everything
Yeah.
was like that. So we've got these places, Atlantic City, very similar. You know, you got Bourbon Street and Beale Street. These little special little party spots, right? But they're tucked in. They're not everywhere, and I kind of feel like that's analogous for meme coins and how they're going to fit into blockchain and stuff. And so the casino will be open, but man, you got to go find it. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good thing.
And I agree, and I think, you know, the interesting thing is you still need fiat to get into the casino, right? Like, you can't go to this casino without any money,
right,
and you can't play. So I think meme coins bring in more liquidity to the space, just like casinos do. I mean, casinos have extremely high liquidity volume. People spend a lot of money at casinos. They lose a lot of money.
Those hotels, they don't build themselves. It's the
exactly.
Those big ass Las Vegas resorts.
100%. And so I think in the same way, like the meme coins are to building the chains. Like you talk about liquidity, like the hotels. If the chain is Solana, that's their hotel. The meme coins are bringing in the people to speculate, which is also ultimately feeding the chain. I mean, the whole Solana run started with like Pepe. You know, that grew a bunch, and there's other memes too. But I think that's what helped the chain grow so much, because it brought so much volume. And I actually knew the senior vice president of engineering at Solana, and he said at one point there was something like 3 million meme coins launched on Solana, like in a very, very short period. So it's like going every second new meme coin. And obviously we know that with Pump Fund, but you know, that just massive rush of kind of creativity, I think brings in a lot of new people. Also things like Pump Fund, I think are very creative ways to get people involved. So I'm bullish on memes. You gotta be. If you're in crypto, be bullish on memes.
Just be bullish on crypto, blockchain, NFTs, all of it. Zach, I appreciate you, man.
That was a great interview.
This was fun. Awesome. All right, guys, make sure you smash the like button on the way out of here. And if you're not following or subscribed, what are you doing? And links down below to Genzio Media. Let's get it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.